Hello and welcome to GeekVerse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the GeekVerse Podcast Network. I'm your host, the Moonbreaker, Dylan Muss, and today I am joined by the Brain Structure, Travis Snell. You got to tell me what this nickname's all about.
Oh, we're going to talk about it later on the show. That's a tease. That's a tease for what's going to happen later on. There's a certain segment that I thought, man, I don't know if we needed this, but I am the Brain Structure, Travis Snell. It's good to be back.
Sounds good. Yeah, it has been a few weeks, like a month and a half, maybe even since you've been on Sidequest. It's been a good while, so I'm glad to have you back here as we talk about opening night live, Gamescom, the latest Jeff Keighley show. We trash these Jeff Keighley shows sometimes, but you're always coming back for more.
Yeah.
So I like to see it.
Well, because I am, no matter what we say in this one, I'm always pulling for the guy, and I always like I like conferences in anything. I like them in sports. I like them in like Comic-Con. Because that's your time to impress people. That's the time to show off what you got and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I hope one day we'll get to the point where we can throw yearly conferences for stuff like that. I love the hype. I love the juice. So it's always and I always like seeing how they like book the show and plan it and stuff like that, which I have pros and cons for this year. So
of course, yeah. To get some plugs out of the way, make sure to join that Patreon. Now is a good time to do that, especially because Sidequest is going to be a bit weird this next couple weeks. We have a Roller Drome review that's going to be next week's episode, and then me and you are recording another Out of Mana episode tomorrow night. I don't know exactly when that will drop, but if you go over to Patreon, you'll get those episodes on probably Wednesday and Thursday, or maybe Thursday, Friday, something like that. So you don't have to wait till next week. You can get them right away. Make sure to join the Discord. That's a fun place. For example, everyone was in there today talking about opening night live as it was going on, so that's always a fun time. Check out our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. The website, GeekVerse.ca. Make sure to leave a review. Those always help. On all the feeds, the SideQuest feed, the main feed, retro feed, all those feeds. Leave a review on all of them. It helps us a lot. Thank you to Amanda, who does the music for the show, and Taylor, who does the thumbnails. And Travis, you had a bone to pick with a thumbnail. You know, of course you went to Taylor because he makes the thumbnails, but came back to me as I'm the one who fed him this image. You had an issue with something on the thumbnail.
It wasn't a bone to pick. I had no idea until you told me who it was. I'm like, who is this individual on the left? I could not place it. Audio video listeners, take a look. Bring up your app right now and you can see it. And I could not place it all. Dylan didn't inform me that it was from High Life. And that made sense. But even that image is like, I was like, because it looks
it's not very indicative of High on Life as a game. I really don't know why I picked it. I just saw that was one of the things that was going to be in the showcase. Tried to get it out before the showcase so Taylor had some time, and I just thought that image was hilarious. So
it looks like hyper realistic, so it's like it doesn't look too animated. So that's why I could not figure. I'm like, what is this from? He looks like a very yellow earthworm Jim, and I could not figure it. So I had no problem with him being on them. I just was like, I was staring at him for a good 2 minutes. I'm like, I don't know what this is, and I know now it makes sense that you gave him that, and now it makes sense in High Life. But I also know that Taylor can pick some crazy things, and then he was just triggering me when I didn't know the backstory. When he said, "Oh, I don't know what it is," I'm like, "Well, you made the thumbnail, so you should probably know." But now it's all been resolved. That little man is High Life.
There's thousands of podcasts out there that are covering opening night live. They'll all have their own thumbnails. I'm sure a lot of them will have similar elements, but no one's gonna have that random ass image from High on Life. So it sets us apart. Here at GeekVerse, we're breaking new ground.
Do you agree with Esbub's assessment that it looks like a realistic yellow angry bird with auction mask? I don't know about the yellow bird, but the auction mask for sure. Like when you said MODOK, that's what I was thinking.
I was thinking MODOK's cousin kind of vibe. Yeah.
Dodic.
Doesn't have the chair upgrade yet. But I like the Angry Bird. That's kind of fitting as well. Also on the feeds this week, we're reviewing She-Hulk. Check that out. Newscast as per usual on Thursday, and then Lord of the Rings Retro going on. The Travis Told Yous are going on this week as well. Anything else on the feed that we should be shouting out here?
No, like you said, last Lord of the Rings Retros, those are going to drop every... Probably Monday now, just the way we're... Well, I'm going to look into it. I guess because in the next week, you're getting Two Towers and Return the King, and Kirklin and Taylor, are going to be doing House of Dragon, the Game of Thrones show for the next little bit, so you can check that out. And we're very close to Lord of the Rings. Bastard gets to see it a day early. I don't even care about the early. I would even wait to see it if I could see it in the theaters. But no, not Kelowna. Even though Kelowna's built so much on the point where we can't build anymore. It's on the precipice, but still we can't get early screenings. Stuff like that. I can't even get a Popeyes in Kelowna. I still got to drive to West Kelowna.
That's
But,
too bad. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm very excited to go to the theater for some Lord of the Rings. It's been a very long time since that has been the case, so hopefully it is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into Opening Night Live Gamescom 2022. Of course, hosted by Jeff Keighley. So we always like, before we talk about the announcements and all that, just I'm curious what your thoughts are on the show overall. It was nearing 2 hours. I want to say like an hour 45 ish. So a pretty long showcase. A lot of good stuff in there. We knew that there was going to be a lot of updates for games that are mostly coming out the rest of this year, but then things next year. Then there's also a lot more surprises, new announcements than I was personally expecting. I had set my expectations low, which maybe Jeff was doing that on purpose, as he's maybe the master of setting expectations. Sometimes, other times not so much. But yeah, what is your take on this the show overall, the pacing, the quality announcements in general, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I watched it live, and I'm scrolling through Wario, so just getting like a quick reminder of everything. I will say it's kind of pretty much what I expected. We were talking on the Discord, and I expected like a B level show, and B sounds bad, but B can still be good. I agree with you that there was a lot of, I guess, surprises. Nothing I would say that was huge. Nothing that was like, oh my goodness. Like even Dead Island 2, I actually didn't even know it had leaked before. When a lot of people say, oh, it leaked. I had no idea. So that sucks for them. But even then, that was a nice little show ender there. I think so. Surprise were good, and I think when I was just scrolling, there's just a plethora of games. They showed off a lot of games. It reminds me a lot of Xbox a few years ago at E3 that would just like hammer you with games, good, bad, or indifferent. They just hammered you with them. I think just the problem with this show, and I would still like overall give it a thumbs up. I think it was good. I don't know where I would compare it to Summer Game Fest. I think I would put this one above that because I think it's funny, like the last 45 minutes, hours seem to be the problem with both of these ones, but I think this one at least had a bit of a stronger, and I prefer ending on a game. Even though I love Last of Us, I thought the Summer Games Fest ending was not a good way to close out and everything like that. But yeah, it's interesting because I feel you got Game Awards coming up, and there's so many games that got delayed till next year. I think that's the only thing that suffered from this one too, where we saw Sonic, Callisto Protocol, we saw Gotham Knights. I'm sure there's another one in there that I feel like we've seen a bunch of, and it wasn't much more. Like Callisto, they showed like a little bit. That's cool. Yeah. Gotham Knights, I feel like everyone that wants that game is sold on that game. Same thing with Sonic. Like it feels like a lot of the same stuff, and then there's just some few like classic bad E3 moments of we're going to show you this Pokemon car, or what my nickname is, Kojima's going to announce a podcast,
Oh, right. And that's the name of the podcast.
That's the name of this podcast, Brain Structure. Yeah. And I just think I think there's like this show I give it like a thumbs up, like, oh yeah, it was good. I could be like, oh, it was a really good show. I think if it was short and some stuff was cut, we always talk about this. I get that you have to do stuff for advertising. I don't think you have to do Kojima for the advertising, and I don't think you have to do the car. I get Kojima because it's probably like, well, to get his next game, I'm going to have to keep bringing it. But it's just like, it's almost a joke now that every time I thought when we saw him today.
Yeah, it's not a surprise anymore. It's just like, we know he's going to be there.
Every time Jeff starts to do his whole like, oh, and I have a special friend. It's like, we know who it is. We know it's just like if we bring on like Kyle on After 9, the listeners know I'm about to introduce Kyle or someone like that the way we introduce him. But it's different with that because it's just Kyle. This is Kojima. And like, I just feel like now it's almost like with Death Stranding, how they're showing it too much. I feel like they're showing Kojima. He's showing Kojima so much. So like it's losing that special when he pops on. And now when it's for a podcast, I just thought I was being trolled. It felt like a Tropic Thunder number, but I get it. He wants to launch his Brain Structure great. So yeah, overall I think that's the problem with these shows too. If you were to flip the hours, I think we'd be a lot, well, at least myself, I'd be way more positive on this. But I think if this was an hour and a half, at least it'd be a little bit quicker. And that's not counting the ad stuff. I don't count the ad stuff. That stuff he has to do, I get it. I just think there's certain things that, I know Kojima's your friend, but if it's just podcast, maybe this is not the place. Maybe we don't need that advertising. Same with the car thing. The car, was that supposed to be, did they help pay for the, like, because it's Gamescom, so this is happening already, right? Like, this is a thing where
sometimes it's unclear where the line of what is directly, because all of these things are trailers, so they're all marketing ads at the end of the day, but there's obviously like quick little 15-second like sizzle reels for a new multiplayer game or something. Those are obviously like paid ads, whereas there's other things where Jeff is seeking them out to bring viewers in. So you're right. It's sometimes hard to tell that line,
Yeah.
especially with these Jeff Keighley shows now.
So the only thing, and this is not his fault, because this is going to be the issue of, I would compare it to, we do the 24-hour stream every year, and and us and everybody, we get to think of ideas, think of things we talk about, and get to boil it up. And I'm not saying he does something much more bigger, but he has 3 big events he has to do, right? So I get that grind of Summer's Games Fest, this, and Game Awards, as far as like keeping that fresh, having big announcements, especially when things are getting delayed. So it's just tough that I think if you are going to have to be constantly like this, the shows just have to be a little bit better. And I think, unfortunately, he's doing this to try and get rid of E3 and things like that. But I think that with this Summer Games Fest, I think he's losing some of that that hype that he captured from Game Awards and the Summer Games Fest previous, when these shows felt like you can't miss. It's good that he sets expectations, but still, even to me, and what we can talk about is when we get to the end maybe, but when he sets up Dead Island 2, and I guess some people have been waiting for a while, but it's just the adjectives or the descriptive words he uses for some of these games, he builds it up a lot bigger than it should be, even on stage. So I think he sets expectations, but then the show starts and we got some really big surprise. I think there's some cool surprises in here, but when it's like this long awaited game, I don't know. So I think it was a good show, just pacing. And S-Bubs, that's a question similar to that. It's just like pacing, figuring out what needs to stay and what doesn't. I know you want every game to show off Imaginable, but sometimes bigger is not better. So I think it's just it's that last hour again. It just starts to stumble, and you start to go, "What are we doing here?" And it's just odd. So overall, thumbs up for me. But it's wasn't the strongest showing again. A very comparable Summer Game Fest.
Yeah. I think I'm in a very similar boat to you. It really is that second half that dragged a bit. And I think for me, in terms of the quality of the announcements, there was a lot of good stuff here. For me personally, I don't think there was that one like, oh shit moment or get me out of my seat, got me super hyped thing. But there was, there's probably at least like 10 things here that I put on my wish list that I'll keep track of now because I'm like at least somewhat interested in it. So that's a pretty good surprise. And then, it's fun to see a couple of these games again. But I also feel like there's a few things here that we had seen just so recently at Summer Game Fest, or we're just getting slammed with, as you mentioned. And I think that's something that I'd like to see him kind of consider more when he's doing these showcases. So let's bring in S-Bub's question here on Patreon. We asked, if you had control over the show, what segments would you rearrange, shorten, lengthen for a better flow? And so one thing that stood out to me was, we'll talk about the Callisto Protocol. I'm very excited for that game. It looks great. But Summer Game Fest, which was 2 months ago.
I was just about to ask you, when
that
was.
He brought up Glenn Schofield, I think is the director's name. Brought him up on stage to talk about it, to show these like various gameplay things and talk about the story and stuff like that. And I feel like we had just done that. I feel like Glenn Schofield's now getting to that Kojima point where like he shows up every single time, just to do this thing again. And I mean, I get it from Callisto Protocol's perspective. They want to get all this marketing out there, but I feel like from Jeff's point of view, like, did he need another showcase of Callisto Protocol so soon after that showed a bit more gameplay that truthfully like did not move the needle at all for me? Is like, this looked good, but it was a different scene than we had seen before, but it was pretty much just the same thing, like rearranged, and it had a slightly different, color to it. It was kind of the same thing over again, and I felt like that was a few of these games, so we'll talk about them as they come up. But that was the one thing that to me that stood out, even though, once again, I am very excited for that game. But it just felt a bit weird. And then, I think for me, the one thing that really needs to get cut from Gamescom specifically, and if this was a conversation of the flow for Summer Game Fest and Game Awards, like that's a whole different conversation. But at least just for this showcase here, I actually think there wasn't a ton of fluff in there in terms of ads and stuff. Like there's a couple Red Bull ads, but they were very short. And there was other games that had more ad things instead of showcases, and none of that stuff really bothered me. But there was a couple things like, for example, the awards that they were doing. They did this last year too. It just is very strange. Like, okay, here's the most anticipated PlayStation game, and it's like 5 games that like I had never associated with PlayStation before.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we got One Piece here. Like, there's like no Gods of Wars or Hogwarts Legacy. It's just kind of like what feels like these random games, and so. I don't know if is that also an ad? Is that like those people are paying to have their game? So like, are they paying so that they can get someone up on stage to talk about it? It's it's just very weird the way it's cut too, where it's like, okay, we're gonna here are the nominees for this category, and then
no one's
as
voting
soon
on
as that's
these, right?
off, yeah, I don't know. Like, is it the people at Gamescom? It's very unclear. And then as soon as the
Yeah.
nominees are done, like the person's there already holding the thing.
Oh yeah.
So
It's very Teen Choice
yeah.
Award where they'd show the
Mhm.
nominees, and let's say it's all these actors, and the only actor sitting in the crowd for the nominees is Tom Cruise, and you go, oh, well,
Right.
Tom Cruise is winning this award because he's the only one there. And that's what this
Yeah.
feels like, where it's very much a kind of PR. Because, yeah, I laugh when, like, oh, the 3 most anticipated Xbox games. And I was like, I've heard some of these, and I kind of joke on Xbox, but it's like, they got to have more better exclusive. Like, Starfield's a exclusive, right?
Yes. Yep.
So you're telling me that out of all these games, that Starfield, even though it got delayed, is not in this like most anticipated?
Right.
Like, it makes very little sense, and especially because like you have the Game Awards in a few months here in December, which usually seems to be the best show out of the bunch. I think Summer Games Fest last year was the pinnacle of all the shows, but that was a one-off. But usually Game Awards kind of brings in some big stuff. Like I said, I am worried for this year because we have so many games that got delayed. I think we might get a situation like this where we're going to see a lot of the same stuff. But I agree with you wholeheartedly about the awards because I forgot about them, and it just feels odd because there's just a few of them. Like I said, I don't know who's voting for them. The nominees feel very skewed to we want this, or it's like maybe they're not paid, but they want specific people to win, so they make it very skewed, so they know, oh, this person would likely win the vote because they're the only one with some notoriety. It's a very odd choice, and I would agree with you that you could cut that. You got Game Awards in December. Save all the awards stuff till then.
S-Bub says, honestly, I think having a shorter show would be a good idea, but I get why the runtime is what it is, because he wants to show off smaller games alongside big releases. And yeah, I mean, once again, like that, it just take out some of that fluff stuff in there. Like even like Callisto Protocol, to bring that example up again, just like Jeff Keighley's platform is big enough, Gamescom has enough people interested kind of tangentially in it that you could say like, okay, you know, today's the 23rd, they had the showcase, they could say the 24th, join us for a 15-minute showcase of Callisto Protocol, and a bunch of people will check that out, and the people who are super fans and want to get all the details have that there, and it's, you know, in the news cycle, it's still, you know, getting that article on Polygon as they talk about it and stuff like that, but then it doesn't, you know, bog down the show with what people who are paying attention to these showcases like are feeling like, oh my god, I'm getting inundated by this stuff. So that's one thing. I will say they I don't remember if they had this last year, but they had a co-host up there. Her name was Melly, and she was like doing the awards, but then she was also kind of introducing some stuff. I thought she was really good, and I like that it was like almost this back and forth. I think unfortunately she was given like the more boring stuff, the awards and things that we didn't necessarily care about. But I actually thought she was a good addition to it, and it didn't feel like it hurt the pacing where it was like her and Jeff constantly having this back and forth of like, hey, what'd you think about that showcase? Oh, I can't wait to see the next game. What do you think? Like all this, like they didn't do that, right? Like they were two on different parts of the stage doing their thing. So I thought that helped as well. But yeah, I don't know if I have anything to say on the showcase as a whole, unless you do. Do you want to get into the first game here?
Well, I just have one question for you because I don't necessarily subscribe to this, but I just saw a lot of chatter about it and whatnot. Do you think these shows might be better if Keighley wasn't hosting them? Like if it was like a PlayStation, you get your reel and you just go, because obviously that would cut off and maybe you could still have them there to interview devs. And like I said, I don't necessarily agree with that. I just saw a lot of people shouting that out as far as there's just certain instances. Like it is odd when he's like, oh, like, you might be able to play this, and he's kind of laughing and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, I
laughing. I will say he was laughing a lot in this show, and it was very strange to me. Like I couldn't get the tone.
It felt
of what
passive.
His laughter was
I don't think
supposed
he
to be.
meant it as passive aggressive, but it felt like it was passive aggressive. I think he was trying to play it off like a joke, like, oh, let's hope we play this.
Like Gotham Knights again. That's so funny, isn't it, guys?
And it's like it kind of makes me care a little less. And like even when he did that with Outlast, he's like, well, hopefully this one you get to play. It's like, well, don't say hopefully, because it is just a bait. Like you want to like, because to me they're putting that date out. Obviously something could get delayed, but they're putting that date out because they hope, okay, we want to be at this time, and have the Keighley kind of laughing up there. So I kind of agree with that. And then I saw some of that sentiment online. I have to check while you're talking because I always look for after every show he puts out a poll. And I don't think he put out a poll for this one because I remember Summer Games Fest, the poll did not go well. It was like the bottom two lowest were the ones with the biggest. So I'm going to have to look because I know he put something out.
I wonder if he was like waiting till Gamescom's over and maybe he has other things planned. He'd say, what did you think about the whole event or something like that?
Yeah, because he did. What did you think about the show?
To me, he doesn't seem like the guy who would back off on that. Like I think he'll put another poll out to get the vibes. So I don't know, maybe it's like a time zone thing too, because he's in Germany, right?
True, that's true. No, okay, I was wrong.
Actually, I don't know if he's
out.
in Germany. Gamescom's in Germany. I guess he probably
He
is in
was.
Germany.
He was. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was for that. Okay, so I was wrong. He did put out 7 hours ago.
Okay.
So out of the grades, because I just want to vote,
Yeah, I'm curious.
whatever, A, B, C, and D or below. I think you and I would agree. Do you think we'd give it a B? That's where
I'd
I
give it a
am,
B,
but a
yep.
B. Okay, so A is 16%, B is 39%, 27% for C, and D or below 18%. So everyone's kind of
Okay.
around the B, and I feel like that's more positive Summer Games Fest because I remember that was
Mm-hmm.
people were quite disappointed in that. So
Yeah. I think it's totally all good to have Jeff Keighley there, and I want him to stick around and stuff. I think once again, just like tighten up the bolts on that,
Mhm.
and sometimes they would have like a trailer, or like a showcase, whatever it is, and then like an ad thing, and then another trailer without cutting to Jeff. And I just think something like that more like just remove like maybe 30% of his presence
He
there.
doesn't have to introduce
Just to-
everything.
Just to speed things along, for sure, I
Yeah.
think could be a good thing to do. So, with that, let's take our first ad break, and then we'll get into the long list of games here. We are back. So, I've kind of made this list as I went through the showcase, taking notes on the things that I found the most interesting and the things that I thought Travis would want to talk about. And then at the end, I'll just kind of quickly mention the things that we didn't talk about in a bigger way. And once again, so if we missed anything there, and Travis, you want to break it down, we can do that. But let's start from the beginning with a game called Everywhere, which
Good. I'm
is one of
glad
those
you're starting.
titles that what is that game? It's called like I think it's called like Anything or something like that. And Wario64 is always posting memes where he's like everything is on sale. Do you see,
I think I
yeah,
remember
you
that.
see him
Yeah,
do
every
that
once
joke?
in a while. Yeah,
Where I feel like Everywhere is a very similar title, and that's just like some ambiguous thing. I'm
It's
curious
like a
what
Jordan
you thought.
Peele title.
Yeah, I'm curious what you thought about this one because it feels like it's supposed to be almost like an experience game, like you're going into this
Mhm.
world and it's not an MMO or something like that. But the way I took it is that they're trying to capture the energy of Fortnite, not the battle royale part of Fortnite, but like how people go to Fortnite to hang out, or they go to Fortnite to watch a Christopher Nolan movie, or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
people do in Fortnite. I don't really know because I don't play it. But I felt like that's what this game was going for. You drive around in your fun buggies, go to these cool open world places, and just chill. That's the vibe I got, but it's a bit ambiguous, I would say. But what did you take from this one?
I think I kind of got that after once we talked about the Discord and saw other people talk. But for me, I think in general this was just like a messy trailer because the video it starts off with just showing like cool, beautiful images, right? And then all of a sudden it's like race cars. I'm like, oh, I guess it's a racing game. This is kind of odd. But then there's like a lot of adventure. Then there's like a CGI kind of cutscene thing, and then it shows the actual gameplay. So to me, I think this is a game that you will hear talked about a lot. You'll see it delayed a couple times. It reminds me a lot of Dreams. It reminds me a lot of Beyond Good and Evil 2, where anytime they start using you create the game. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing because you look at something like Minecraft, right? The perfect example of you create the world, the game, etc., everything like that, right? But I think there's been so many cases since then that whenever I hear that, it's such a red flag for me where I just go, I'm fine if you create the game for me and I play it. I don't need to, like, you guys are the professionals. I'm not. And when they kind of use very broad terms, there's not much you can go on. But I agree with you that it's in a world you're constructing, like, God, even Disney Infinity had this where you can instruct a world to lounge in and play in and hang out with. But it's just like, but I remember with Dreams, it was always like, but what's the core of this game? And eventually Dreams came out and it reviewed relatively well. I don't think it sold that well. But whenever you ask them, they always like never could give you like a straight answer of like, what do you really do in this game? So I think it could find an audience. I just don't. This is not a game for me, and I don't think the trailer was really good too. Because even Keeley talking about those awkward laughs, he's like, "Oh, that showed a lot of stuff," and that's how I felt too. I'm like, "Yeah, that showed a lot.
Yeah.
What exactly is this?" So, and I think it's gonna be a very hard game to market too. I don't know what it's a case if it's gonna be a Game Pass game or a cheaper game. If it's a full price, full release game, I think that's very hard to market.
I'm guessing it'll be free to play. Yeah, I think these games are just very hard to. It's hard. Like, you think about the games that are like this. I think of Fortnite, Minecraft, even Roblox, and I don't think those games were made to be what they are now. Like they just stumbled into what they are now, and then they just kept rolling with the momentum, and the momentum has not stopped for a decade on some of these games now. And so I just think it's really hard to try and push this. I think it'll be difficult if it doesn't take off hugely immediately. I think it'll be really hard for them to keep that momentum up. And I think maybe one thing too is it seems to lack its own identity in terms of what is unique about it. Right? It seems like it's kind of an amalgam of these other popular kind of online
Yeah.
experience games, but it also needs to have some hook to it, whether it is like that crafting building system, whether it is that battle royale. They need to do something there, and so I'm curious to see what that will be. But yeah, I'll keep my eye on this one, but I don't have high hopes for it, but I would love to be proven wrong because it could be really cool. I mean, some of the visuals looked awesome. Like it looks like it could be a lot of fun. I don't know if it's a genre for me necessarily, but we'll keep our eyes everywhere for this one.
Yeah, good job. Yeah.
Okay, next up was one that I feel like got the hype levels very, very high, and they stayed very high. And then there was 3 letters that kind of, at least for me and you, kind of threw us off track. So this was Dune Awakening, which is an open world survival MMO. The cinematic trailer for this is fantastic, where
Yes.
I don't know if it's supposed to be like a character that we would be familiar with, or if it's just more
I
of
think
a
it's Paul
generic.
Atreides. I think it's supposed to
You
be
think so?
Timothy Chalamet's. I think it's supposed to be.
Even if it's like an MMO, like, do you think maybe it's like, okay, this is your player, like everyone has their player created character or something like this?
Yeah, I think you would like meet up with Paul Atreides, but you wouldn't
Okay.
play as Paul. That's what I think. But just because he's like narrating the world and he has the black
Right.
hair and that slender build and everything, so I think it's
Mhm.
supposed to be Paul. So
Yeah. So it sets up that we don't get any gameplay for this, so it's hard to say. I would guess based on what we saw that it will be a third-person kind of action RPG of an MMO, which makes sense, fits the bill for these kinds of games. But yeah, I mean, everything about this sounds right, except for how MMO-y is it going to be? Like, there is MMOs where you can kind of have like a pretty solid single-player experience doing your thing, avoid multiplayer, just kind of cruise around in this world. But then there is also ones that kind of force you to be more social, which I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I think just the promise or the idea of a open world survival, action game in the Dune world with this level of fidelity, assuming that the actual gameplay even halfway matches the quality of the cinematic, that's kind of what me and you want, I think. So, any thoughts on this one?
no, just like you said, I don't think it was. I think it was in our Discord, and I think it was just online too. You could just feel like the air come out of the room when it was just like, all because I feel like everyone. I know the sentiment is, man, we have so many open world RPGs. Why do we want anything more? But it's just because there's certain IPs and certain characters or certain worlds that just fit exclusive like so well for that. And I felt like Dune. I think ever since whether you've read the book or now since the new movie, people have seen them like, man, I want this game. I want to be in this world to do things and stuff like that. And even if it more leaned on the survival aspect, like I'm sure you played Don't Starve, right?
I've actually not played it, but
okay.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
So that was like one of my first PS4 games because when like no games were out and everything like that. So I got that. And that is just like, yeah, there's like little action, but it's purely just survival. And obviously you have stuff like Breath of the Wild while you're cooking, things like that. But I think with this, with you being in the desert, everything, you could really, really lean on that. But once that happened, I will check it out because I, like you, I like the world, so I want to see how MMO it is, and if there's even a wrinkle of me being able to play it and really enjoy it, then maybe I'll get into it. But most MMOs have been like this, where I like, oh, I'll give it a shot, and then once I see the full review, I kind of go, it's pretty much like everything else, which is not a bad genre. It's just not anything I have a time for, and not anything I very much like, because I also am a story-based guy. I think that's definitely changed a lot throughout the years, but even then, like, this is, you always get like the bare minimum of story. You know, a character says 2 lines, and then it's just you just doing activities for the next little while. So I would really like it if that happened, and it sucks because we had the Spice Wars, but like not that was bad, but just like
it's an early access, so it's not
Yeah.
a complete game. Yeah.
But when that was being revealed, everyone's like, "Oh my god, a Dune game!" And I was like, "Okay, it's this type of game, and it's not on console." Okay, and then this was happening. I was like, "Oh, it's our RPG." Oh no, it's not. So I can't wait for we actually to get that real Dune reveal game of like a open world. You know, but at the same time, I know there's so many, but it's also like space games. It's just like, there'll be someone for something, and I don't know why there is so many space games right now. There's a lot of space games.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
So maybe the desert would be great, but I will at least give this a go. I would, well, I guess I would. I might, but am I? Are we assuming price wise? Is this going to be like a fully priced game and stuff like that?
Oh man, that's hard to
Because
say.
there's a mix, right?
I mean,
Some are
yeah,
free and
MMOs are
some-
kind of all
yeah.
over the place right now, whether they're free or just like a one-time purchase, or even still monthly subscriptions for certain games.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep an eye out on this one. And yeah, I mean, also shoutouts to Dune, Spice Sword. Go check out our review for that. I have enjoyed my time with that, even though it is in early access. But yeah, I think what you mentioned there of the survival element, that is something that's very interesting to me, as I don't know how that would fit into an MMO generally. Like that seems like a very single player focused thing where you're keeping track of your water counter and like, you know, making sure you have enough food in your inventory and keeping your heat levels, all that stuff kind of good. So I'd be curious to see that, because I think the survival element is a hugely enticing part for me about the Dune world. So I'd really like to see that. And I mean, even like some of the MMO stuff, like I think it really is kind of set up for success in that, like, just imagine when you log in and you can choose like which seat you're part of, like which Freeman clan you're part of, or maybe you are from the Atreides people, and you can pick from their clan. I'm not sure how that would work. I don't know if you would be able to pick the Harkonnen or something like that. I'm guessing not, but who knows? Maybe you could. Maybe they give you that level of freedom. But yeah, I think that could be really interesting too. Just kind of having that allegiance with your certain siege and kind of building up that as you go along. So definitely keeping an eye on this one. Absolutely on my radar. I mean, I picked up Spice Wars even though it's in early access, and I never do that just because I'm so hyped on Dune right now. So I think unless this is like an $80 game, I think I'll definitely be at least checking it out just because I want a great Dune game right now. So
yeah, the price is key. If it is like free or even not, like a smaller price, then I will be willing. Even if it was a subscription, I will be willing to try out for 1 month. But the survival could be fun because you could like maybe barter or trade with people as far as maybe you can only carry water if you have this specific pack, and they got the pack but they don't need it because they got double. Like there's things you could do with it, but obviously just a cinematic trailer, and there was really no date given, so we have no idea. This is a game we could be talking about in 3 years. Like, remember that Doom game that they showed us?
It's true. Yeah, and one thing I think I saw in the trailer there is that it is coming to consoles as well, which is awesome because not a ton of MMOs do necessarily. And I remember that was the New World MMO that you were interested in from all the trailers, the Amazon one, where it's just like, well, I cannot play this, and that's too bad. So
and they had me. I'm not even an MMO guy, but I was like, I'll try this out. So that's what I hope when we see that official kind of gameplay, that they get me and say, okay, at least worth checking out if it's not $80, or at least if it's $80, then I need some really good word of mouth on a game like this.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, I don't think there's much to say on this, but I wanted to at least bring it up, which is that they showed off the PlayStation customizable controller, which, I mean, to me looked like the exact same controller, so I don't know if it's necessarily just customizing the outside and the colors, because the image they showed just looked like the controller I'm used to. Or maybe you can get different interior parts so you can customize the experience that way.
The only thing that's different is below the thumbstick, there's the 2 buttons below that.
Right.
Those aren't on the PlayStation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Is this something that you'll be checking out as a PS5 owner?
Negative. No, I don't. I respect people that need
Probably
the specific
incredibly
headset.
expensive for this customized controller.
I know some people go, oh, I can't play if I just have this. I'm fine. Even if it's for people that like a certain edge when they're playing Call of Duty or something like that, I'm fine to take the L on. I don't need it that bad. It's I've never really dabbled into that controller life other than like cool colors. That's about it for me. But I thought it was gonna be the VR too. I thought like the way it was assembling was gonna be more on that, but it was not. So
yeah, that'll probably be its own state of play at some point, I would expect. Next up was Callisto Protocol. We kind of talked about this a bit earlier, so I don't have much to add. I think just this game looks great. The gameplay looks like a lot of fun. We got this kind of longer sequence where the character's tumbling down this kind of pipe, this water stream through this whole building. So I wasn't really expecting that, and so it seems like there will be some more bombastic kind of action sequences in this game alongside just the straight up combat. So that's cool. There's something else there. I was kind of maybe looking forward to some more story information given here about the world and stuff, and we didn't really get that. They're kind of just doubling, tripling down on the gameplay, and I think trying to get that Dead Space nostalgia run in for people, which I'm sure is pretty successful. But yeah, anything to add on this one?
No, I really like that gun. That was cool, like this gravity, like pushing gun and everything like that. I agree with you. I'd like a little bit more of the world. I don't know if that's because they're being cagey as far as they want you to experience that when you get the game, or if the story is just very basic. It's like a lot of just creepy settings, like you going from point A to point B. So, yeah, God. Well, I guess did it already have that? Yeah, it had that date of December, right? So December 2nd. So, yeah, this is what I'm looking very forward to. It's just tough because I just pulled the GV calendar and I just look at that month. But the good thing is for us, because you got Game Awards and then Avatar 2 back to back. After that, there's not too much big stuff, because that's a good thing with Avatar coming out. Nothing else. So I don't know if it's gonna be for sure picked up December 2nd, but I might try to get away. But I guess it's not gonna be in contention for Game Awards, the show at least.
Nope.
So, but yeah, this game has excited me since I saw the trailer. So it all depends on what happens with if I get God of War and what other happens. But with other games dropping like Harry Potter and stuff like that, my schedule is more opening up.
Yeah, a lot of things got pushed away.
Yeah.
Next up was I wrote down the Lord of the Fallen, but I think it was the Lords of the Fallen.
The Lords of the Fallen, yes.
Which I looked into
have
this
been waiting for
because it
time.
sounded familiar, and it's because there was this is a sequel, and the first game was called Lords of the Fallen, so they added "the" to the title to make it a sequel. What's your opinion on that?
Did you hear his little joke when he's like, "Oh, they dropped the two. They dropped the two." He said that after the trip. Yeah, I think it's stupid. I hate the fact.
Hate it too.
I hate stuff like that. I don't know if you know this because you're not a fan. So there's in the Fast and Furious world, there is a movie called Fast and Furious, and then there's a movie called The Fast and the Furious.
Right.
It's dumb. I hate that stuff. I hate how there's 3 separate Halloweens of like, oh, they couldn't change, they couldn't think of anything, so it's just Halloween 2018. Just lazy. And I vaguely may have heard of this, but this was one of those times too where he does downplay it before the event, but then when you get in the event, he's like, a game that people have been waiting for a long time and really anticipating. I've not heard it. I've not heard you bring this up. I've not heard anyone bring up Lords of the Fallen. So that's where it's just like the same thing. Cut out that part where Keely's talking and just go to another trailer. You know, fun enough trailer. There's some mixed with rock music. It was a cool cinematic though, but yeah, even then I didn't. I feel like it still didn't do enough to even tell me the history of the first one, or like why I should be excited for this. At first, I was just like, man, this is a Lord of the Rings game. That's what I thought for a second until we saw our main character's face, because he's looking very spiky like Sauron. I'm like, well, Gollum's getting the game.
Definitely some Mordor vibes to the setting. Yeah.
Maybe Sauron's getting the game, but I was, and then the Lords of, but no, I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of on the same wavelength as you. I definitely have heard of this first game, but I think I've just kind of heard of it in the context of like, oh, this is a game that tried to be like Dark Souls and was like, okay. It did that decently well. So, I mean, maybe by the time the sequel's here, you know, they'll refine whatever was just middling about that first game, and it'll be pretty cool, because I mean, the cinematic for this like totally had me. The Mordor vibes, the Dark Souls energy, the unique look for the enemies, and the weapons I thought was cool too. Like the sword, how it had like the regular hilt, but then it had like another handle to make it kind of like a spear. That was like a very interesting weapon. There was like that weird chimera thing where it was like a beast with 3 heads, and then like wings popped out. It looked like a hand. Like just really, really cool design. So I'm definitely like gonna keep my eye on this one, but I think just the first one wasn't maybe a huge hit, wasn't too successful. So I mean, I don't know if I have too much faith in this one.
No,
but, it's on the list at least.
Yeah.
Superbad Mike says it wasn't that game total crap. A bad Dark Souls clone. I think I was maybe being a bit more generous, but you might not be wrong. Honestly, I have not heard many of my Souls fans be preaching this one to me. Oh, you got to check this out.
So I got a question, because I'm not sure if it's next on your list. With Moving Out 2, do you have that next on your list, or that's just later on? Okay. Are these the same people that make Overcooked?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. Because I was like, this is complete, as they say in the wrestling world, gimmick infringement. Like the font's the same, everything's the same. So for some reason, I completely blanked this out from
I'm not 100% sure if it's the exact same developer, but I know it's the same publisher, and it's definitely the same engine. So
it's within the family. Okay.
Yeah, it's within the family at the very least.
And
Team 17 is the publisher, I think.
Is it a similar thing as far as instead of the goal of cooking is to move out fast and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I love Moving Out. I think gameplay wise, I might like it more than Overcooked, and it's also a lot more polished than Overcooked, which can be very janky at times. Now, I also love Overcooked because part of it is that it's janky and chaotic, and that's what makes it so great. But I love Moving Out. I had a lot of fun with it. Now, when the first one came out, it was like the worst possible time because COVID had just hit. So like I had it on my Switch, and I just saw like no one to come over and
Oh
play
yeah.
the game with. Like I played with Connor a couple times, but that was it
Yeah.
because I was living with him at the time. But I think the big change with this one is that they are adding online multiplayer to it, so that's a good
Okay.
thing. But yeah, essentially the concept is you go into the house, you have your moving truck out front, and you're just bringing everything into the truck, and then a part of the challenge is like making sure you can stack everything in the truck, like fitting everything in that limited space is part of the challenge too, and you kind of have to plan out. It's like it's a lot more strategic, I feel like, than Overcooked is at
Okay.
times. But it's just so much fun just tossing tables out of windows. Like you can be very destructive, smash TVs and windows as you're throwing things down to the truck. It's a ton of fun. Like this is a cool announcement for me. I mean, it's not like something that gets me super hyped necessarily, but like I'll probably get this on day one. I'm definitely excited for this. I really liked the first game, so it's cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's impressive that I know it's a smaller game, but the sequel's like already coming out. I was just checking the price because this is one I'm gonna have to pick up when let's see, including PlayStation Plus Extra. Really? Okay.
The
'Cause
first
me and-
game, interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Me and Emily loved playing Overcooked together because she had
Nice.
I'd heard I'd played it with you guys and seen it before, but I think it was on PSN Plus one time where it just got. I'm like, oh, you should try this out because they'd be fun. We just blew through that. I never played the second one yet because everyone always says the second one's like not as great, but no, this is one now that I think I have Extra Plus. Even if I don't, I would probably get it
Yeah.
probably for the stream.
I think
coming
it's
up,
like $20-$30 or something like that for the
yeah, it's
game
30
itself.
bucks. It's $33 for the game itself,
Okay.
but then included in that plus extra. So
And
yeah,
these-
no, I'm gonna have to get that.
You know,
for
worth
us
knowing
'cause-
that this publisher, like their games go on sale all the time. So even if you just keep an eye on it, I'm sure it'll go like pretty cheap at some point too. And then I'll also put this on your radar. There's a game called Tools Up that me and Muds have been playing recently, which is more about like renovating a house where
Mhm.
you're like bringing in carpets and throwing down rugs and painting the walls and stuff like that. It's pretty fun as well. So there's a
No,
lot of
that-
these little games out there that I'm really enjoying.
That's good to know. Yeah, we like that type of genre. And
Keeping
stuff.
couch co-op alive is this publisher.
Exactly. Yeah, and I don't think you ever have because we're going to be doing a mini spoiler for announcement. We'll be doing. We're going to be doing the rematch on the 24-hour stream. But you got to go watch the cookout. Oh God, the cookout. It's not called the cookout. Me and Emily jokingly call it the cookout. Overcooked. With the match of Saris and Kirklin versus me and Taylor. And man, there was we had some close ones, but there was one where we got both their plates, and it was just a very sad 5 minutes of
I'll
just
check it
them
out.
trying to figure it out with one plate. It was really good, but we're gonna be running that back in November. But yeah, this was great. That's awesome. So
Moving on here to Hogwarts Legacy, which, if anyone didn't know, recently got kind of delayed. It didn't have an exact date, but they were throwing 2022 all over their trailers. But that is now, I believe, February 10th or 9th, whatever that Thursday is, I suppose, is Hogwarts Legacy. This trailer was really more about the story, I feel like, than instead of showing off like some new gameplay things. And I thought it was quite interesting. They were really leaning into the darkness of the game. Now, one thing I was a bit confused about, and I don't know if it's any more clear to you, is if like this is the way the story goes, is it goes down this dark path, and you have to essentially choose between like the lesser of two
I
evils, but
wish.
you're going down the evil path. Or I don't know if this is like entirely optional, and this is just they're showing off like if you want to play an evil character, here is an option for you. So what did you take it? Is this like in the story it's mandatory you go down this path where someone has to do the Crucio? Is it you or is the other guy? That's your choice? Or is it like your choice altogether if you go down the evil path at all?
I think it's mandatory, and I don't think it's even you pick if it's you or the other guy. I think it's just gonna happen. I think it's gonna be a story point.
Really?
Yeah,
I
just
thought when
'cause-
the screen split in two and it showed you and the other guy, that 100% I thought that's what they were going for.
That's why, and I think you could be right. I just want to set my expectations very low and think that
Okay.
like I just think it will be something where it's like you have a choice, but really the choice isn't that much there. Like I don't, because I don't even know. You could be playing that as like a flashback, and then you jump into your characters. I really don't know. I would want that because, as we talked about before, with that first showcase where it did at times hint about going down a darker path, and I would love to have a similar Knights of Old Republic system of you're picking you're a Jedi or a Sith, and if you could pick between, let's just in this situation, a Gryffindor or a Slytherin in that sort of mindset, that'd be great. So you're right, the screen did split. I just feel you could make a choice there, but I feel at the end of the day the result's going to be the same. I hope there is some
gotcha.
sort of good or bad, and yeah, maybe almost like SBub says, there's something where there's a portion where you make choices, but then eventually once you get to your character, you're going to be on the same path as pretty much everyone, versus some choices. I was saying that I knew it was going to be a story trailer. I actually thought we were going to get a little bit more. It was a pretty quick trailer. I thought they'd show a little bit more of the world and maybe some other villains would be fighting. So I thought it was a good enough showcase, but I guarantee we'll be seeing this again in December Game Awards.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet. Or even if Sony does another a state of play, I think we will see this
at least for God of War, right? They have to.
I mean, that's the thing. I think they would do a God of War one. The question is, would they do a general one as well? Would they do 2 like before God of War? I guess it's November, so they have a few months to do that.
They should do like the lead-up ones where they have a God of War, but that's like do a 45-minute one where half of it is the other games and the other half is God of War. I know they like this is just about God of War, but I do like when they have and that also puts a showcase on other games because people might not be looking at some for like Stray, for example, right? If you have a smaller game like that in the future, if it's attached to you're going to see God of War, you get to show those off. Where God of War, pretty much everyone that's buying God of War is probably going to buy unless this trailer comes out and it just looks awful. So,
yeah. I think what you mentioned of they didn't show too much here, also leads to me not having too much more to say about this one. I'm down with the darkness, and I just hope that it is optional and that you are choosing if you want to go down the side or not. Because, I mean, one, I love when games like this really incentivize you doing multiple playthroughs and seeing how the different things play out, but then also it makes the game more compelling of these choices throughout the time, and hopefully it's more of a gray area thing, like, ooh, am I making the right choice, what should I do, that kind of stuff. So hopefully that's all in there, but I think I'm already at like maximum hype for this game, so I don't think this trailer really moved me beyond that, but it also didn't bring me down either. So looking forward to that one in February. Hopefully it does not get delayed again. I really want to play this game. This next one I think is going to be a bit of a quick hit, but it's called Under the Waves, which is coming out next year. And not much to it. It seems like maybe more of a slower-paced exploration story-based game where you are playing what you kind of have like an astronaut suit, but I guess it's like a submarine sort of suit. And you're kind of cruising, walking around through what is like a sunken world. So it's unclear to me. It's like a certain area is like this, or like you're going in the ocean and there's like a hidden place down there that people just discovered, or if it's like maybe it's a global warming story and the world is like getting covered in water and these places are going underground. So I don't think I have too much to say on this one just because of the maybe length of the trailer, but it's definitely on my radar now. It seems really interesting. I really like the aesthetic of it, but this one moved the needle for you at all?
No, not really. I don't think it is exploring anything that maybe another showcase will get me on board, just like another trailer, but this just looked like cool. Because was this a studio that they had done the shooter before and they did something else before?
No.
Okay, because I know there was some confusion. Yeah, that's the next game.
That's Moonbreaker,
yeah. No, this one didn't have too much out of it looked pretty, but I don't think it's not on my watch and see list as of right now. Still would need to be surprised by it.
Sounds good. But yeah, you just mentioned Moonbreaker, so let's talk about that. So this was the game that Taylor actually had a few games in here that he was really pulling for, and this was one of them. So Subnautica was this developer's previous game, which, it was like an underwater survival exploration game, and I was, like probably most people expecting their next game to be in that realm of things, survival, maybe a new setting, maybe an alien planet, maybe whatever it is. But no, they did not even a 180, just like something way completely different. And they mentioned that their previous game before Subnautica was also a major departure for them. So I love that. I love that they are just doing completely wild new things each game. I'm sure that gives the creative people over there a lot of flexibility and makes them feel like rejuvenated with each project. And I really like that. But then at the same time, it's not like they're iterating on certain ideas. And like the survival element of Subnautica was great, but how much better could it have been their next game? Anyway, not really relevant here, but their newest game is called Moonbreaker, and this is kind of a tabletop RPG sort of strategy game. Think about like the tabletop Warhammer, things like that. And they really want to dive into that part of it where you can go into the workshop and you can paint all of your figures to not even just like picking a palette where there's 3 things you can customize. It's like you can go in there with a 3D gray model and paint and brush every single thing, every single figure and all that stuff. And then you're doing like RPG, turn-based kind of battling in that way. So I'm curious what you thought about this, because I feel like this is not a Travis kind of game, but maybe there's something about it that spoke to you.
Yeah, it's not, and it didn't really turn me aside. But what I did notice was I felt like with the crowd that likes that type of stuff, it spoke with them, and it hit really hard of like a game that's on the list, whether it was the actual gameplay or the world, but actually, just like you said, the painting of what were the dinosaurs? What were they again? Robots?
They're just kind of whatever. Like they're all sorts of
Yeah.
different creatures and mechs and all sorts of stuff.
Whatever
Right?
they may be, that I just think got the juices flowing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, like people brought up like, oh, anyone that plays D&D will appreciate this.
Yeah.
And what it looked like is just lots of care, because I feel like I've seen a lot of these games, but some of them can look very generic, very kind of flat. I know it's flat because sometimes it literally is just that board, but I just mean like it doesn't feel that lively. And I did like, because I was already thinking this when he said this, he compared it to the color scheme was very much like Firefly or Guardians of the Galaxy, and it felt like that, like even the menu popped and stuff like that. So this one didn't exactly turn me like, oh, I'm going to be getting on it, but I appreciate, one, I like the studio taking the chances doing other stuff, and two, I think for the people that are in the stuff, it's onto their radar, and I think it was a really good showing. That's something where even if I'm not in the game, I can go, okay, this is a good teaser, preview, showcase. I think he said all the right stuff and everything like that. So yeah, I think it was a good showing for this. And I think it's definitely on a lot of people's radar now. So.
Yeah, I think it looks great in terms of the visuals, like the color choices. Obviously, for the characters, you can customize that, but even just the environments and all that stuff really pop for me. Maybe one thing for me is like the figure characters.
That's
they don't really have
right
like
now, yeah.
They don't have animations for things, right? Like they're kind of just like you pick them up and bop them into each other, which obviously is very fitting, and for a lot of people, that's going to be very therapeutic as they feel like it's very realistic. But for me, I think I would have preferred actual animations to these attacks and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that stood out for me about this one was that this game is written, at least in part, by Brandon Sanderson, and it wasn't just like how Elden Ring kind of maybe tacked on. I can't remember his name, but
George R. Martin.
George R. Martin, yeah, tacked his name on there when it feels like, how much did he really write this game?
Yeah.
But Brandon Sanderson was here, had like a little minute-long thing where he was talking about the world and seems like he's very involved. And I've not read any of Brandon Sanderson's stuff, but I have a couple friends, Clinton and Cody as well, who are just such diehard fans of Mistborn and other Sanderson works. And I've just had like hikes with them where we just talk about his worlds, like the whole hike, even though I've not read the material. It's just that engrossing and that interesting. So, and I've also just watched a lot of YouTube videos of him like just doing classes about writing, just because he's such an interesting mind. So that gets me really hyped, even if I don't necessarily have experience with his work. I just think he's an awesome dude. So I think it's a great pairing. And yeah, this one's definitely on my. I obviously love those tactical RPGs, so it's on my radar. And maybe I'll see how those visuals, the animation stuff. I'm sure I can get over that for what seems like a pretty awesome game. So yeah, this was my nickname for the episode too. So I'm kind of hyped on it in that way. So this might have been the highlight for the showcase for, I think, at least a lot of people, but maybe for me as well. There might be a couple of the games, but this was definitely a standout. Next up, and another one that I don't think I have tons to say about. It's called Friends vs. Friends. I actually really like the art style of this one in parts. I liked when it's in first person, and it was kind of first person shootery. I like the cell shading to it. I like the bright yet like faded colors. It was very interesting. But then there was other parts where there's like card game element to it and menus and stuff that the art style was not really vibing with me. So it's like kind of a 50-50. I'll keep my eye on it, but I don't know if this one's going to be for me. And this seems like not much of a Travis joint, I'll say.
No, I appreciate some of the color schemes and the art style they might be going for, but yeah, nothing jumped out to me as I need to pick up this one.
Okay. With that, let's take our second ad break here, and then we have a bunch more games to talk about. Okay, we are back. The next game is called Lies of P. I don't like this title. Don't like it at all. They said it a few times. I think that host, Melly, said it. It's in the trailer. Just that's it. They had people in the studio like, let's try out some different names. They had this one, and that's one that stuck a bit. Don't know what to think about that. But this game seems very interesting. I would describe it as kind of a Soulsy kind of game, but with a very much a Dishonored sort of vibe in terms of the setting, in terms of the combination of both magic and kind of steampunk tech and the world and all that stuff, and its dark vibes. So obviously I love Dishonored. That's speaking to me. This is a Game Pass Day 1 thing, so I
Yes.
will absolutely be checking it out. And yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff. I guess the joke with this one is like it was like Pinocchio Dark Souls. Even though there's not really much Pinocchio in, there's really no Pinocchio in it at all, as far as I can tell.
There is. You got
Okay,
like
what's the
Jiminy.
Pinocchio part of it? I guess I
So
don't get
obviously
Pinocchio.
lies of P. You got like Pinocchio lying, right, and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Instead,
I didn't even think about that. To be honest.
instead of him having a doll body, he has a metal body, and he's talking about like fixing his body. You have at one point Jiminy Cricket. I think like the thing on his belt. He's
Okay.
like, "Let's get out of here." I think that's gonna be what Jiminy Cricket is. And then there's at one point in Pinocchio, he gets kidnapped and brought to an evil circus. There's like a circus guy
okay.
there. And then there's at the very beginning, he's like, "Oh yeah, come with me, my boy." I think that's supposed to be Geppetto, like the guy that made him and stuff like that. So
Okay, I'm clearly not enough of a Pinocchio
Yeah.
lore.
Oh, it's
fanatic
there.
to
Yeah, yeah.
Notice some of these things.
it's very like a twisted. That's what I joked about in the Discord, but it felt like if Zack Snyder directed a Pinocchio movie where
Right.
they're making it like if you want a dark, twisted Pinocchio, this is it. So I appreciate that because I'm somebody that I just watched Shrek the other day with kids. I like a good fairy tale being twisted. And now if this was $80 price game, I don't know. I think I will be. Is there a date on this game? Coming
Let me do a quick
2023.
Google.
Okay. It's 2023.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything else. So you know what? As of right now, mark me down for that review. If you're playing Lies of P,
All
I'll play
right.
some Lies of P. Let's do it because it
Hell
looked
yeah.
interesting enough. Now I definitely think it's a game we could play and come on here and be like a solid 6 to 5 out of 10. Like it could go either way of like being a very just meh game or a very underrated game that flies under the radar and like, hey, have you played Lies of P? Because I liked the aesthetic, like you said, the kind of Dishonored. I like that steampunk world. I love the mixing of the whole kind of like I'm the person that can't wait for that stupid Winnie the Pooh horror movie because it's just like, oh, we're taking a fantasy and just being really crazy with it. So we got the Pinocchio Disney movie coming up. We got the Netflix one. We got this game. Pinocchio is having a
So much
hell
Pinocchio.
of a decade. So no, I will definitely be trying this out, especially now that I've dipped my toes into the kind of Souls, Elden Ring type of world as far as boss fighting stuff like that. This looked easier than those, I will say. Now, obviously, I'm just seeing gameplay, but something about it looked a bit more mainstream. I don't think here's the best way I will describe it. It's somewhere in the middle of Elden Ring and Jedi Fallen Order, where when Jedi Fallen Order, they're like, oh, these are just kind of like the Soul bosses. It's like, yeah, now I played a Soul game. They're not, they're not really. They still feel pretty mainstream. I don't think these boss fights looked as hard as a Souls game, but maybe not as easy as a Jedi Fallen Order in one. So somewhere in there,
Okay.
I think a bit more accessible for mainstream for people to jump on.
All right. Yeah, the other thing that stood out to me was just the design of the weapons. I thought was really cool. Like just fun names. They had the little names in the bottom right of the screen, but just all sorts of crazy stuff. And like, yeah, you have like the one sort of mechanical arm where you're putting more attachments on, kind of like Sekiro in that way. So this game looks very interesting. And look at that. You can probably, since it's Game Pass, expect a review from GeekVerse on that one. Super bad Mike will be excited to hear that review.
Exactly, yeah.
Next up is going to be Stranded Alien Dawn. I was a bit confused on this because I felt like the alien in the title was like the same font as the Alien like IP, the franchise. But,
yes.
But this is not an Alien game, to be clear. At least I looked into it and there's nothing about this that screams Alien. I guess there's maybe a couple of things, but essentially,
this game now.
Yeah, essentially you are arriving on you're stranded on a planet that has, kind of dinosaur-looking creatures on it. Seems kind of classic in the way you're like building up a base, you're doing some farming, and then it's weird. Why this also made me think of Alien is because at Summer Game Fest, there was Alien Dark Descent or something like that is the name of the game, and it was like a minute and a half long trailer, maybe 2 minutes, and then at the end there was 5 seconds of gameplay, and that was like the same thing here, where in like the last like 2-3 seconds of the trailer, you can see like a squad of people on a wall like fighting off hordes of enemies. And so I was like, what is up with this Alien marketing where like for some reason these trailers only allow you to show 3 seconds of gameplay? Very bizarre, and also looked similar, like very top-down, isometric sort of thing. But yeah, what did you take from this one?
I remember this kind of unfairly, but it just happens with games like we point out in the Discord being the joke of how much different it looked from cinematic to gameplay because it was and not saying the gameplay looked bad, it was just a vast difference and everything like that. Because
Yes.
I thought they sounded okay. I like this premise of, you're stranded on an alien world, and technically that's still the premise, but that's what can happen with sometimes these cinematic cutscenes. Where to me, I felt like this was going to be also we were talking about Dune, a survive. Like, hey, you got to go out there, you got to hunt, you got to build stuff, almost similar like what Fallout did, right, with those fortresses and everything. Where this feels like that's just primarily. It's not like a third, person story. It is you're building stuff. You're almost like a park builder. Like, gotta look after the dinosaurs, gotta look after the cows, stuff like that. So, not for me. I agree. That's Bub's awful title. Awful title. The Australian Alien Dawn. It's just they should have picked one. I think
Yeah.
Stranded would have been fine. I think they just wanted the word alien in there to get spruce
Do you
it
think
up.
they? I feel like there was this meme that arose after Death Stranding, where there was anything that was similar. We'd call it like a Strand type game. We'd call it like a Strand game. That was like the name of that genre, just to
Yeah.
be very like Dark Soulsy on the nose with it.
Mhm.
I wonder if they're like. I mean, this looks nothing like Death Stranding. I'm not saying that, but they have Strand in the title, so maybe for SEO they're trying to get some stuff. But yeah, it is a kind of an awkward title, Stranded Alien Dawn. One that I'll be hard to remember. Like I'll think about a couple imageries things from the trailer, but I'll be like, oh, what is the name of that one again? So I'm curious to see more of this one. Next up was another CGI filled trailer. This is Atlas Fallen, supposedly coming out next year, 2023. I thought it looked really great from what we saw. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say just CGI because we did get some gameplay elements in there at the end. Very quick cuts though, so I feel like it was hard for me to get much of a vibe in that there was like 2-second cut, 2-second cut. Here you're sliding on the sand in this one. You're jumping in the air in this one. But I think this game looks fantastic. The CGI trailer looked great, but also in-game looks pretty awesome as well. Kind of a desert setting. I know you're not gonna like this, but I kind of got some Eternals vibes from this, where there was fighting these kind of deviant-looking creatures.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Actually,
building up this world where you're kind of in the past, but you got some future tech. So I thought this one looked really cool, and this one's definitely on my radar now. I'm very curious to see more. I just want to see what like 1 minute of gameplay looks like. Like I'm very curious in that way. Is it fully open world? Is it level based? We will see. But yeah, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, I'm just surprised Forspoken already has a sequel. I thought they would have let the game come.
Does have that vibe, hey?
That's what I felt about
without
that
the writing of Forspoken.
Yeah, that's what I felt about it. And because Forspoken happened, and the jury's still on that. We still got to play it. And maybe I'll really enjoy it. But that was a game where I loved the first showing, and as time went on, I kind of fell less in love with it. This one I did really enjoy. It is a cinematic trailer, but right away they're setting up the world. I like the use of sand. I like the character design. So the actual world, okay, I was falling in love with that concept. Now it is, okay, what is this actual game? So this is one that's kind of in the middle. I got my eyes on it. Not a for sure, day one, because obviously tons of stuff to go. But it's one that I'm looking forward to seeing in the future and seeing if it can capitalize on that or if it's going to stay the same and go down. But I think this was a really good first showing, and I feel like this kind of got some people buzzing a little bit as far as just like, I like the aesthetic. I like the color, like even just looking at like the title screen of the game of them standing there, like I like that, just a combination of sand, it's like a Mad Maxy and spacey and stuff. So yeah, need to see more though.
Yep. Next up, I'll let you explain this one, but Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game.
Yes.
Talk to me about this.
So this is based off a very cheesy 80s movie where it's exactly that. It's killer clowns from outer space and they're taking out young teens and stuff like this. This is one where Keeley completely sold this right, where it's like a game you would not have expected to get a movie or a game time, whatever it is. This is that. I was never expecting the fact that we'd be getting a Killer Clowns from Outer Space game at all. I think they've been trying to remake it for years. It is I hope one day maybe this will be excuse to retro it one day. It's just a wild ass movie, but
just one movie exists. There was never a sequel or anything like that.
I think there's a second one, but I think they start going to straight to DVD and stuff like that. I'll have to look it up. But the only thing that gets me semi excited about that is I'm pretty sure it was Gun Media's their name and stuff like that. They're the guys that did the Friday 13th franchise. Right. And okay, so no, there was only planned sequels. Never. Oh no, there's a couple. There you go. But yeah, I think they were all like one was happening on the Sci-Fi Network and stuff like that. So yeah, they got really down there. But and it's known as like a big time stoner movie too as well, to get high and like watch this weird movie. But it sucks because they did Predator, and I feel like Hunting Grounds didn't take off the same way Friday the 13th would, and not the way that Friday the 13th was massive, but it's just like didn't take off the same way. And I don't know if this can take off at all. I just always hate that, you know, that lawsuit messed with Friday the 13th, and they had to shut it down because they had such a good thing going and they had all this stuff planned. So I don't know if this one, because the next game I have on my list is Evil Dead. I know SBubs talks about all the time. I am an Evil Dead fan. I was just waiting for that price to go down, but I am a big fan of the franchise, so I want to get on it. They're introducing remake elements, so this is not the one I would get into the genre.
Now, I want to put this out there quickly that this is from the executive director of Friday the 13th. It's not that studio that made Predator.
Media. Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So I wonder what they're up to next. So yeah, I don't know how this does unless it has the mechanics and it plays really well. I don't know how this is going to do because I don't think many people were ever asking for this a game to be made, but I'm sure they also got the license pretty cheap, and it's like, well, the same way Friday 13th was originally just a cabin in the woods type of game, they went, hey, slap Friday 13th on here. This gives it like a little bit more attraction, so it could be fun. It was a very goofy, colorful trailer, so I liked what I saw. This is a game that if it is free on a Game Pass or something like that eventually, I will for sure play, but I'll have to wait a little bit for see what the price is.
Man, I was thinking about Pinocchio and how, like, you know, that's public domain, all this crazy shit's coming out. What do you think is going to happen with Killer Clowns from Outer Space when that's public domain? Do you think we'll get a bunch of movies, or is that going to be a long forgotten thing of the past?
Someone will try. Maybe it'll be us that'll try, but someone will try. You know, I just always worry about next year. Steamboat Mickey Mouse is going public domain. And I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even know if video games could do that, because the people that made Cuphead, I feel like a Steamboat Willie Mickey game, you could just have a field day with that artwork. So yeah, the more as time goes on and these things start to become public domain, I can't wait to see, like Liza P, like what's going to happen with all this stuff. But yeah, maybe someone will take a shot at Killer Clowns.
Yeah, I'd be down to check this one out if the price is right. Maybe a Game Pass joint would be nice. I think for me, the one thing was that the animations were looking pretty rough, so hopefully... They say it's early 2023, so I feel like they wouldn't throw the early on there unless they're feeling kind of confident in that. So hopefully it looks a bit better when it's finally out, but I think this could be fun. An IP I'm not familiar with, but I would be very much down for that retro of at least the first movie. I just got to see what this is about.
I think looking into it, there is only one movie, because I think they had a bunch of failed sequels being made. So
okay, so like in production, but then got canceled or something.
Yeah. So they got backrolled a lot.
Zaslav must have been over there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the budget of the first one, 1.8 million, made in 1988. It is a, yeah.
So next up is another game that has maybe a title that could be better. Mostly for me was the logo. It's called Scars Above, but I actually am not 100% sure on that, because the logo, the font of it is kind of weird, because you think it'd be like Stars Above, but then
I thought it was
Scars
titled
Above?
something. I thought Scars Above was the subtitle. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought that was the subtitle.
Please tell me if I'm wrong, because I think this was something that they did not very clearly state in their trailer.
Well, I remember
Essentially, the setup of this one is that Earth exists,
you're right.
And then Scars Above, and then this gigantic, strange alien mothership kind of thing. It's like a big triangle, sort of, just shows up and like just floating there, kind of where the moon would be, and is just floating there. And then I guess you're one of the people who are sent up there to figure out what's going on and all that kind of thing. So I got to say, like that concept, fantastic. Like I think it's been done before, and I'm very much down for that mystery of like, what do they want? What's the story there? Can you communicate with them? And just seeing where the story goes. I really like the art style as well. It's very dark and brooding, a lot of like very green lights and very foggy and, dark and gray and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very much intrigued by it. It seems like a third-person action game. I'm curious what the balance between action and like exploration, adventure elements are, because I think for this one, I would very much be down to go on that adventure, learn about the world, uncover some lore and stuff like that, instead of doing just killing aliens and stuff. I think that could make it go down a more generic path, whereas the hook is a bit more nuanced. So I'm definitely hopeful for this one. It's definitely on my list, so I'll keep an eye on it. But what about you? I think this is kind of in your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, I was liking it. I got less interested as it went on because my one thing was I felt like the type of enemy types were looking a little generic and stuff like
Okay.
that. Like
Yep.
those weren't really standing out. I agree with you, the location, and I guess I was taken aback because the whole trailer, the first little bit was about exploring the world, and it was them coming to Earth. So I was like, oh, are we gonna land on some planet and explore that? But there's some visuals there. I think this is kind of similar to the Atlas game where it's in the middle of like I'm watching it now, want to see more and get closer. But it's a game also, it's like a game I've never played, which I probably should try now. It's like Returnal, where I still haven't played that, but just like the landscapes in the world made me still make me want to jump in there. So that's the thing where I think you're right that the aesthetic is pleasing to me. So yeah, I think this one did it have a date on. I can't remember, or was it
I
just
don't think so.
2020? No, so I'll be watching for it, but it didn't. It didn't get me to the. It wasn't exactly like what I thought when it started. It felt much more like Callisto Project, where I thought, okay, I'm gonna really like this is on top. Where this is kind of okay, it's somewhere in the middle. The most I remember from this is they had that opening of the lady from the European Space Company, and she was like spinning everything like that. And that's where I could tell Logan was my daughter because she's not even 3 yet, and she started to spin, and she gave like a Travis like not amused like like I don't know why she laughed, and she shouldn't laugh like that at this age. It's probably just more like taking mannerisms from me. But because I had the same thought of when she did the one rotation, that's fine. But when she kept going, I was like, what's going on? So this is a game to keep my eyes on. I want to not 2 thumbs up, but like a thumb and a half of like, okay, I'm liking what I'm seeing here. But I agree with you. If it's just like shoot 'em up, then I'm almost less interested in it.
Definitely.
You know.
I gotta say, maybe my highlight of the showcase was just getting Logan's review on all these things, just these random little thoughts. That's so interesting to me, just like the innocent childhood perspective of it's just very off the cuff, they're just sharing exactly what they're thinking without any nuance, just like this is great, this is bad, or a little like huff and puff, little sigh, like you mentioned there.
Well, she's
once again great reason to join the Discord because that was a lot of fun to hear all of her takes.
She's actually a massive fan of Elden Ring. She's always wanted me to play it and stuff like that. It's a dark game, but like she's just always like, we got to play the game and stuff because she gets a gift for the Wii U remote.
Is there something she likes? Is like when you whip out the horse? Is there like a boss fight
I think
or
it's
something?
I think it's just the aesthetic, and I think I do play it up when the monsters are chasing me. And then when the monsters are chasing me, I kind of play it up and stuff like that. She's sitting beside me with her Wii U remote, thinking. But when her and Gwen are, but I've not given them on personally. They do their whole thing where they're like, "Oh, we're in a different part of the game. Like we're doing this." I'm like, "Why didn't you help me?" Like, "Oh, we were busy and stuff." Like
that's hilarious.
They're completely doing their own thing and stuff like that. Yeah. So Logan, big fan of Goat Simulator. I can't remember there was another game where she just said this game's good, and the other one's this game's not good. So I'll have to look it up in the Discord. But it's been fun to see, and luckily she fell asleep for some of the more violent games like Dead Island and stuff like that. So
right. Yeah. I love that the Wii U controller is still getting used by someone.
Of course,
it
has some use. The ones that get used in our household is the Wii U one, a pink Wii remote, and then the Xbox 360 remote. Those are the 3 that are the kids controllers. So
love that. That's amazing. Next up is a game that I started out as a 10 on when in the first like 2 seconds of the trailer, and then it kind of went down, and then I did some research and it kind of went down some more. So this is called Word Song once again. WYRD song. Could not tell what that Y was. Also, I had to do some Googling on this. What is up with these titles? There could be some better titles out there. But anyway, why I was so hyped is because the first thing says this is a new studio from talent that made Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, The Outer Worlds, Dragon Age, Inquisition, which I haven't played Inquisition, but that's like a huge, amazing, great game from everything I hear. But all those other games I love. So, of course, I'm in immediately. But, I mean, one thing for me was, I guess I actually liked it's a CGI trailer. It's maybe a little bit lower fidelity, so it just wasn't giving me much, but it's kind of like dark fantasy, maybe semi-mythological sort of thing. I like this kind of concept of there's kind of this eclipse happening, but then I guess the sun like quickly zips away, and then there's like some eye that pops up in place, and maybe it's a black hole. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but anyway, you name that talent, and I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, sign me up. But then I read an article with the designer, and honestly, just kind of turned me off. I don't even know if it was just a specific thing, but it was just his tone just really was turning me off. And they also mentioned that right now they're at the size of 15 people in their studio, and they're aiming to get to 70. So like this game is really far away. Like they're still kind of setting up this studio. So I mean, I'm definitely keeping my eye on it because I love those games. I love a lot of what those games do. But at the same time, this guy, also the head of the studio, also was like the lead designer on 76, which they did not put in the trailer. They did not say Fallout 76, but that was like the last, I think, AAA thing he did, and then he left Bethesda and kind of started this up. So I'm cautiously curious on this one. But I just put Elder Scrolls, like from the creator of Elder Scrolls, whatever, a creator, a designer, a coder on Elder Scrolls in your title of your trailer, and I'm obviously going to be a little more hyped on it than anything else. So word song.
Honestly, I had to look up this one to remember it, so it didn't stick with me. The only thing I will say that kind of rings true of some other stuff I have as like a con for this conference and maybe stuff going forward is I feel like Keighley does that a lot, and E3 was guilty of that too, but a lot of games that are very, very early on, and there's lots of times we might not even see this game, or it might not.
This one should have waited for sure.
Yeah, but I feel like Keighley just does that. Go, I got a game here from these people. Let's show it and everything like that. But yeah, no, I don't remember it. So maybe I was dealing with a child at some point. The art looks cool, but yeah, I don't remember it specifically. So it didn't stand out to me if I did see it.
Yeah. Okay, next up was Gotham Knights, and I think this is a game that you mentioned you haven't really watched any recent trailers. I'm kind of in the same boat. I've kind of been on ice on it as I don't feel like I need to see much more. I don't think I'm going to be sold at this point. I'm still kind of on the fence, but probably leaning towards not getting it. But there's a few things here. One is they moved the release date up by, I think, 4 days, so it's October 21st now. And then I think for me, like one thing I was curious about in all these other trailers that I've seen is that I've never really seen any villains that I recognize. It was just generic bad guys and focusing on the heroes, which is fine. But I was curious, like, who are you fighting against in this game? And in this, they showed off, and maybe it was the first night. Wait, maybe it wasn't the first time they showed off these characters. The first time I've seen them was Harley Quinn. Is it Doctor or Mr. Freeze?
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
Dr.
And then other
Fries,
characters
Mr.
that I
Freeze.
do not know the name of, so I need you to help me out here and tell me who these characters are.
Yeah, so obviously they showed like a long time ago when this opening was like Court of Owls. So that's gonna be the heavy marketing, the main bad guys. Mr. Freeze was shown at DC Fandom when this game was revealed. Okay. I can't remember if we saw a specific picture, but there was a very icy level, and I think they showed something of that. Yeah, Harley Quinn is there.
His look, by the way, great. I love the style they've chosen for him.
Yeah, and I don't know what they're going to be doing with that actual character because Batman's dead, so you wonder what's happening with Joker. But yeah, Harley's in there. Clayface is another one, the big, like, muddy-looking guy. He is he's an actor in the comic books that has an unfortunate accident with some kind of cream, and he is
cream.
Well, it's something like that where he's trying to like look younger and stuff like that. But either way, the story always changes. Either way, it's something bad with trying to stay younger, stuff like that, and he can morph into anything. He can change his appearance and anything. He also get very big. And then the other one you could see very early on is Professor Pig. It looks like they've gender swapped it, but that's fine because Professor Pig is just like a fucking crazy serial killer and stuff like that. So for me, I was kind of expecting like Hogwarts where, okay, I think this last thing, because October is not that far away, we're going to get like a story trailer here. And to me, like I'm always like curious, who are the villains? Because before they were just really leaning on just Court of Owls. And that is big because Court of Owls is one of the biggest like bad guy rosters. But the fact you got them, Harley, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, and Professor Pig, and there might be some secret ones there. Just that 5 alone, I'm like, I'm sold. Even though I hear you and I even see our chat where people are, it feels like the hype has died down. My hype, and maybe that's because I haven't been looking into it. My hype's always been at a 10 since DC Fandom like 3 years ago. I've been in love with this concept of getting to play as the Bat characters that aren't Batman, it's always about Batman. I love Batman, but I love a lot of these characters. So if it is the Avengers type of vibe that we're all kind of worried about, that will be lesser, but they are showing a lot of story stuff. So I'm hoping that it is more kind of like the Avengers campaign versus after the Avengers campaign, like what we talked about where they had a great story there with these core characters. But this is day one for me, and I'm very thankful it is the Friday because that's easier for me to get off than a random Tuesday. So I think I'm going to do my best to get that day off and just Gotham Knights it up the whole week. And I am very, very excited for this game. This is probably... Probably one of my most anticipated games.
Nice.
It is, but it's up there just because the concept. But it also has a lot of room to disappoint me now because I've stayed away from a lot of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much Midnight Suns being in the same month as it originally would have been a problem for
Right.
them in terms of getting an audience because they're very different vibes and obviously different universes. But I think, now they have a little bit more of a runway, I think, especially with other things getting delayed too, that I feel like this game has, potential to do pretty well. And yeah, I think for me, it's just when I watch those gameplay videos of the individual characters, I think Batgirl looks great, and Robin looks fun as well. The other two characters, not so much, but the red dude, what's his name again?
Red Hood.
Red Hood. I should have known. I was like, man, I do not want to spend 10 seconds playing this character. He does not look enjoyable to me at all. But
really
I gotta say, like
beefy.
some of the world stuff, like obviously they all have like big traversal moves, but even just like driving around the city streets and stuff like that looks like a lot of fun. And Clay in the chat today said that this is the biggest like Gotham
It
City,
is,
I guess, that's ever been
biggest Gotham map. Yeah.
made in a video game.
Which is
So that's
impressive because
pretty exciting.
Arkham Knight had a very big Gotham. There's lots to do in it.
Okay.
So if this has that, then I'm very excited just to explore Gotham because yeah, it is another Batman game, but at the same time, it's just we haven't had Arkham Knight in God, like I think it was 2015 or something like that. Like it's
Been a
been 7 years or so. So
So there you go. There's Gotham Knights. Expect a review of that one up on GeekVerse as once that game is out. Next up is you made the joke earlier that Forspoken already got a sequel, but I'm looking at this one. I'm thinking, whoa, Ghost of Tsushima already has a sequel too.
yeah,
Called Where Winds Meet. So this is, like I said, kind of Ghost of Tsushima-esque, kind of a open world Japan setting, leaning into a bit of the mythology, but still saying somewhat grounded. I think that maybe the movement mechanics are a lot more over the top in this game. You can run on water,
100%,
you can
yeah.
double jump, you can do crazy wall riding, you can. Looks like you could maybe even just fly. Like at one point, he was very high in the sky, just hovering or flying or something. So that's pretty cool. The world looks beautiful. I think for me, with this trailer, I just got vibes of like, this is too good to be true, and there's something about this that's not going to live up to it. So we will. I mean, maybe that's a very bad take to have, but I'll definitely keep my eye on it because I love Ghost of Tsushima. But I also was feeling a bit burnt out when we went to the DLC, and I was like, you know what? There are not enough changes here, so I'm curious to see how this game carves its own path. And it seems like the movement is one thing, which is pretty big, but I'm curious what else it will do. But you also a big Ghost of Tsushima fan. So what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I think for me, I do like the more realism aspect of Tsushima. So this, like when I saw the heightenedness of it, I don't know if that's doing it for me. And I felt like why I think it does fit with the game they're going. Even some of the character designs felt more almost like anime-ish, which anime can like have a very stylized, obviously very over the topness. So I don't think this was the one on my radar. I kind of looked into it. You know what? I think in this genre, I like the more realistic, a little more gritty, a little more down to earth. Because of course, there's fantastical things that happen in Tsushima, but not to what you're talking about. Same thing in this, where there's even times though where he drew his bow where it looked like Ghost of Tsushima. So it's something that if I hear a lot of buzz, maybe I would check out because I do like that world. But I think I'm more inclined to wait till we get Ghost of Tsushima 2, even though I don't think it would be like this where he's like maybe flying stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm happy with my samurai and his ability, so it didn't overwhelm me. But and I agree with you with the too good to be true. I think something's up with it in my opinion. It just felt. It just came out of nowhere and looking too good, you know. But
we got to see like what's the story, and like we didn't really get any dialogue between characters. Like do you have a gang of friends that you're cruising around with? How is that kind of stuff? So we'll see. I maybe cut a few things out of here that would maybe have slowed the show down, but I mean we got to quickly talk about these things, which was the Kojima as a podcast thing, and then the Pokemon car. I mean we already kind of touched on them, but just very odd things to throw in there. I mean, the Kojima thing. Actually, I guess we kind of covered that. It's just like, I get it. You're friends with this guy, and he's a big deal in the gaming space.
And he keeps promising his
like
next game reveal.
I feel like with each time he shows up and just spews nothingness. I mean, shows to him doing a podcast. That's cool and all, but I don't know. I'm it's like removing some cred from him.
I agree.
I'm like less hyped when I see him now because I don't necessarily think it's going to be some cool thing. It will just be whatever random thing he's thinking about that week. And it's like, I'll just go to his Twitter account if I want that. I don't need to get a section of this in my showcase here.
I agree. It's so we talk about the Discord, I suppose, brought up there. It just feels very much like when I feel The Rock, where I go, oh, or I see him, like, I just know we're about to get an ad for something, and that's what this felt like, where it's like, I know Kojima is promising Jeff the next reveal for his next game and stuff, so it's like whatever Kojima wants, he's going to show it here, but she's like, this has nothing to do with what's going on, and I think it does make it feel less special, because we've seen him, Jeff keeps saying it's like it's a special appearance, but we've seen him at almost at every Jeff event, and it's nothing. One time was just, hey, I'm working hard on a game. Another time was, I can't remember what they announced on Summer Games Fest, but it was something similar where it's like, nothing too much, and then just even if it came with a hint of the game and then this, fine, but yeah, no, I think they should stop doing this until he has a game, but I don't think they are. I think Kojima's gonna always pop up on this stuff. So,
as Bub says, it's like if Sakurai showed up at the end of a Nintendo Direct and announced a podcast. A slight difference would be that Sakurai would first have to show up like 4 or 5 other Directs and be like, oh,
That's
I'm
true.
working on a thing, but it's far away, or I'm gonna be working with Xbox, but I can't tell you what it is. And then, like, yeah, on the 5th entrance, he's like, okay, now I'm doing a podcast. So, yeah, just a weird thing. And then
plus,
the Pokemon...
I'd love that podcast. That'd be interesting to hear the stories of things that have gone behind the scenes,
Yeah, especially, I mean, Nintendo's very, keeps things under wraps, so I'd be down to get some of that. But as far as the car thing, like, I don't know. I feel like Jeff Keighley, a lot of what he's doing is, like, in opposition to E3. It's like, here's E3, here's how it has failed in many ways, and I'm going to be the better version of that. So to me, like, I don't know, maybe we're outliers, but always on the podcast, whenever that Xbox would have that thing where there'd be a car on stage, we'd always criticize it, be like, why is this here? We don't care about this. This is the wrong audience. Da, 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 da. So, like, maybe we're on the outside of that. Maybe people are interested in that, but I feel like that's something that Jeff would be like, okay, people don't need that kind of fluff in here. Gamers do not care about this car, but he put it in here anyway. So, very weird touch. Maybe he thought, oh, it's because it's Pokemon, it makes it okay, because there's a new Pokemon game coming out. But to me, it's like, I don't know, put a Sword and Shield trailer in here. That's even if it's not like a new trailer, it's just like a Nintendo ad trailer. Just do that. Like, we don't care about this car.
See, those who fail to look back at history are doomed to repeat its mistakes. And I feel like him feeling, well, I can do the car thing and do it better because it's gaming. I don't know. Maybe you're right that we're in the lesser. I never feel like we are, because I don't bump in that person that loves this. In my opinion, these people cut Jeff a fat check, and that's why the segment's here. Because I think Jeff knows that the gamers, he's such a guy all about the game. I think he would know that this isn't for them, but I think they gave him a nice, good old, hey, get us on the show. And it's not too long. I was disappointed when it was like, oh, let's stand back, and they start to talk. I'm like, oh, they're doing the developer talk, and they did announce that to see them next year. So they will be back for Gamescom 2023. So yeah, I don't think this helps the show, but if it technically helps the show for it to go on and get better reveals as far as money, I do understand that point, but from the show standpoint, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think it's one of those things where, like all press is good press kind of thing, where I've already seen multiple memes about this, and I wonder if that's something Jeff factors in too, is like, this will get people talking, and maybe they'll drop that hashtag, and maybe we'll get Gamescom trending and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if he factors that into his decisions at all.
It was the one thing that I tweeted about for Gamescom too. I used a GIF of Kenny Omega, my favorite wrestler, like doing the thing. So you're not wrong. Controversy creates cash. So you're not wrong. But I that was more a point of, I hope Jeff sees this and goes, oh, I was completely wrong about this. But no, I think we're getting game guys
proving
back.
him right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take what will be our last ad break of the episode, and then we have just a few more kind of main headline picks here. Okay, we are back. Black Tails, the next game up. This one looked really interesting to me. It's kind of first person. Once again, dark fantasy. A lot of very dark themes and games.
Space and dark fantasy.
Yeah.
That's what we're going for in this decade.
But I thought this one just looked really cool in some ways, where you kind of have this bow that's almost like grafted onto your body, and it's kind of like a necromancer bow or something like that, and you're also casting magic. They kind of had that classic line of, are you going to be a good witch or an evil witch, that kind of thing.
What was it called again? I'm not
Black Tails, the name of this
Black
one.
Tails.
I don't really know where that name comes from in terms
Tails,
of
like
what I saw.
Sonic
Tails in
character
like
tails?
a tail on your if you're a cat and you have a tail. And then I just thought some of the creature design was cool. Particularly, there was these mushroom guys who looked very evil, but also kind of cute in a way too. But yeah, I really like the look of this one. So I'm curious to see what the full scope of the game is. Is this an open world experience? What is the story hook? What other kind of weapons is there? Is it just a bow? So I'm curious to see more. But in terms of the vibe, it's definitely up my alley, I would say.
Terrible title, because when you type in blacktail, the first all over is a location and the actual animal blacktail. You got to type in blacktail video game to get what you're looking for. But I remember this a little, but not too much. So demo available. Yeah. So no, this is one I couldn't speak on as far as remembering that much, because if I saw it, then it didn't leave an impression on me because I didn't remember that title. I like the logo. I like this poster here. So I like the art style that they got going on. Yeah, that's about it. I have changed on first person games. I don't know how I'd feel about a first person bow game, but I'm not actually opposed to that. So yeah, there's some cool stuff in here. So, but yeah, terrible title for just SEO, because so much stuff comes up when you search Blacktail before that game. So.
Next up is the Outlast Trials, and I gotta say, I feel like I'm actually not too qualified to talk about this one. I've not played Outlast. I've watched a bit of it here or there. And I think the two Outlast guys on the podcast are Taylor and Kirklin more so, but you're a big horror guy, so you're shaking your head. Are you an Outlast guy?
I don't like this narrative that has formed over the years. I am a massive Outlast guy. And I think it's
I actually did not know this, so I don't know where you gotta establish your Outlast dominance.
I feel like I was just not on some cast, and they were talking about Outlast, and then they became the Outlast guys. And I'm pretty sure I was playing it at the same time. And I swear that I was playing it even before Taylor was, because me and Kirkland were talking about, because back to Don't Starve, back in the PSN days, or PS4 days, when there's no games. Yeah, it was a PS Plus game. I was like, okay, there's really nothing for the PlayStation. I'll try this out. And I loved it. It is the best way I describe it to is very much like a Res 7 in that sort of life, but in an asylum where you're seeing lots of creepy stuff go down, but you're in an asylum, so you're trying to escape out. You're looking into a mystery. It's a very well thought out world. It's very much like that genre of Res 7, and I love that, or what PT would have been. It has a great vibe. The second one, I've only played a little bit and didn't continue because most people said it feels like a step down, and it felt like that. So maybe one day I'll get into it. But yeah, with this game now, I think this trailer was like disturbing, stuff like that. I don't think they really emphasize though the selling point of this is you're going to be able to play with somebody. Like, it's an online version of that. This just looks like a third game. This to me, it didn't really emphasize what I want is, what is the is it a Way Out? What's a game when the people are stuck in prison? It's 2v.
That's a Way Out. Yep.
Yeah, Way Out. I was hoping, and not to be as good as that or like that, but something similar where, okay, you're in this asylum and you have to work together to get out of here. Obviously, that's a whole different playing system, but the idea of, okay, if you are making this game, that if you look at something like a Resident Evil 7, for comparison, that is just a sole player game. It's you in this house trying to get out, right? That's what the Outlast games are. It's you in an asylum, you in a hospital trying to get out. There's always some mysteries, there's always some twists, there's always some big jump scares, and there's some creepy. And I think Outlast is one of those games last decade that should be on like a lot of underappreciated lists, because still not a lot of people know about it. And as far as horror games, I think it's up there. So I was looking very interested to, okay, how is this going to work? And we got nothing. We got a cool trailer. The beta, I'm excited. I won't probably be playing that, but I'm excited for people to start playing and getting their hands on. But even from the developers, this is the one that I actually would have wanted developers to talk about. Okay, you're taking this game that's been primarily a first-person, only one-player game. How are you making it co-op? And not really. Like I said, is it a work together? Is it a race against time against you guys? See who gets out faster? Are you guys on the same screen? Is it separate? I don't know. And didn't really get that, but the vibes are still creepy, so that's good. I can't wait to go to Root Canal.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. I'm going to quickly rifle off Dead Island 2 closed out the show, so we'll talk about that last, but I'm just going to quickly rifle off everything that we haven't talked about in a big way, and if there's anything here that you wanted to talk about, Travis, you can jump in there. So they also showed off new tales from the Borderlands, Dying Light 2 DLC, Tortuga, A Pirate's Tale.
Yeah, Tortuga. That is... I thought it because that wasn't tied to what's the Xbox game? The
Sea of Thieves.
it's
Yeah.
not tied to that,
No.
right?
No,
At
no,
first, I thought it was gonna be because anytime we see anything pirates related
Mhm.
nowadays, it's that or Skull and Bones and stuff like that. Which I'm so excited that you told me that's coming out November 8th. I didn't know it was actually coming out. I can't wait for that to come out and just see
Same
the
day as
reaction.
Sonic, same day as God of War.
Huge,
So,
huge day for
huge,
gaming.
huge
Yeah.
day and a half there. Yeah.
Huge day for two games, probably not to get played that much. But the only thing I'll say about Dying Light is because I haven't played the game, I had no idea what this was for. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Someone's making this like Fight Club basement game. It's like, okay, it's a DLC for Dying Light. That's fine.
Yeah, I think I would have felt the same way, but I saw the developers tag, so I was like, okay, this is.
Oh, there you go.
We saw this coming. Destiny 2 Lightfall, Sonic Frontiers, Goat Simulator 3 Return,
Mhm.
2 Monkey Island, Homeworld 3. There's kind of like a Moyo-verse section. This is Genshin Impact in their sci-fi game, whatever that's called. High on Life, The Expanse, the Telltale game. Parks Beyond, which is a roller coaster tycoon kind of game that looks fun. I'm into those. Warhammer Dark Tide 2, Phantom Hellcat, and that showing off that Dwarf Romantic, which came out of early access on Steam earlier this year, is coming to Switch. That game is great. I talked about it on Sidequest at some point. Go check it out if you're into kind of simplistic town builders. But those are all the things that we did not talk about. Anything stand out for you there,
No,
James?
I'm just still really excited for Sonic Frontiers. I'll definitely not be getting it day one because I just if I do get a game that day, that would be the God of War day. But it's just a tough time because that's literally 2 days after the 24-hour stream, and I think it's in the middle of like a bunch of stuff. As always, like November games are, right?
Mhm.
So, but that's why Sonic to me, I'm looking very forward to it. Can't wait to play it. The kids really love Sonic. Probably, it's not even when I'll wait for Games Pass. I could even wait till it's like half off, even like a $60. Because like I actually that world looks like a lot of fun to me, and like running Sonic Free Roam, great. Yeah, no, I think that's about it from the things you mentioned. You know, I was not
Cool.
expecting High Life to have so many swears going on. Luckily, Logan was asleep for that too. But yeah, it's
This is
actually
an R-rated
no.
showcase. There was a few brutal things.
She was asleep for one. That's the one that she said not a good game, and I don't know if she could sense
Oh.
this or anything, but that was the one where I thought she was gonna
Yikes.
like it, but she wasn't really liking those character designs. I guess so,
Not a Rick and Morty fan, I guess.
No, we haven't tipped our toes in that.
Yeah, maybe wait a few.
Yeah.
Maybe wait a couple decades on that one.
Mhm.
Okay, closing up the show then was Dead Island 2, which, yeah, you were talking about the Discord, how you're like, okay, this is the last game, usually a huge game, and I'm kind of on your page where, like, this was announced, and I feel like everyone in the Discord is like, oh my god, it's Dead Island 2, finally, and I'm like, where have these people been?
Yeah.
Like, I've not heard these people talk about this game, and it almost feels like, okay, well, this is a good trailer, now that there's a good trailer out, now all these people are like, oh, I'm a huge Dead Island fan. I've always have been. I'm excited for this game. But at the same time, it has been a long time since this game has been kind of announced and maybe reworked at some point or started from scratch, whatever it is. So it's taken a long time, but it's finally coming out February 3rd. So yeah, it's that, once again, another game in that early February slot, which that's like the new hot time for games. February, March, April is like when all the huge games come out these days now, apparently. So what did you get from this trailer? We got first the cinematic, and then they had the person come up, the developer, and then they kind of this joke where like, oh, we're gonna show some gameplay in September, and Jeff's like, oh, but what if you did it now? And they're like, oh, let's do that then, and then they showed some gameplay. So we got a bit of both, which you always like to see. But yeah, what's your opinion on Dead Island?
Imagine she's like, no, Jeff, we talked like September. You can't put me on the spot. Like I'm not showing this, but I thought the game was canceled because I learned in the Discord that apparently this was announced in 2014 originally.
Right, which is crazy to me too. Yeah.
Yeah, that that's crazy. Yeah, no, you said exactly what we talked about. Like even Taylor, I had to call him. I was like, oh, I'm a big Dead Island fan. It's like I've not heard him talk about this once, and he's like, oh, us fans are quiet. Are you quiet because you didn't really want it that bad? Like I don't like. There's some games, even if I'm not wanting them, I can just hear people talking about them. I think this is a good game. If this is like a B tier type of conference, I think it's unfortunate it did leak last week, but I think it's a good game because at least it is something. I think you build up a bit too much. Like people are waiting a long, long time. I guess there are some people that have been waiting a long, long time. I just didn't know them yet. And I don't think it's one of those cases where something happens and then I go log in my Twitter timeline and I go, oh no, I was wrong. There's a huge fan base here. I didn't see that going on. I didn't see people dunking on it. I just saw just like, oh cool, Dead Island 2. And I didn't play it first. The gameplay was there, but it also had like a lot of the censored stuff. So there's a lot of just like coverage going on, which was a strange choice because I get it. I get because it's violence versus vulgarness, but it's just like you did have that High in Life that was just like dropping a whole bunch of
Callisto
swear
Protocol
words.
too. Like a guy gets ripped in half.
Well, yeah.
There was several decapitations throughout these showcases.
It was a weird choice that way. The cinematic was cool, but I think went on for way too long of this guy like going
That's
around the spice of life. And here's the thing too, where I still have to get on it. Where oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name. What is the name of the game that came out? Deathloop. They had said like, oh, it's in a tribute to this style of type of media or movies and stuff like that, and you could feel that. With this, them like, oh, we were really trying to throw back those classic zombie movies and trying the campiness of it. I didn't get that exactly. There's a few moments in the teaser that I felt like they're trying to go for that, but it didn't feel like it like. Oh, that's what could have pushed me over is, oh, this vibe is really cool. The only reason I still played Deathloop is just because, well, I don't have a reason now, other than I'm just a father of 3 that has 2 jobs. But the main reason was when it came out was the same time, like, oh, there's a bunch of other games, I'm playing this. But it was always like, man, this style seems so cool, and I can't wait to eventually play it and get my hands on it at some point. But with this, it didn't really, the cinematic kind of style, the actual in-game stuff didn't feel like it had that same style. Where Deathloop, I remember just both of them having like, okay, this just flows one together. Where this feels like the cinematic and the actual game are kind of different and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think this feels almost a lot similar. It's funny, it's coming out this Tuesday to like Mediocre Reviews Saints Row, where, you know, yeah, there's an audience for it, and I feel like that even has a bigger audience, but I think it's going to go that type of way where it's going to be maybe like, and it sounds bad to say, but just felt like a 6 to 7 out of 10 type of game that if you like the first one, you'll be there, but it's not going to shake much heads. I don't know what that even means, but
yeah, it's not gonna have people.
I was gonna say make much waves.
Way.
I was gonna say make much waves, but I said shake much waves. So yeah, all over there. So
yeah, I actually quite liked the trailer here. Both of them I thought were pretty solid. I mean, for the gameplay side of it, for me, I just thought the game was fucking beautiful, and I just want to walk around this dilapidated LA and walk around these like pools and silly stuff like this, slaying some zombies. Like that part of it looks fun. I did play the first Dead Island, and I think it's a game that I've just largely forgotten about. I remember that I played it on PC, and it was like ported from the Xbox version. And maybe I played it at launch or something, but I remember that being a very bad port, and maybe that was part of my thoughts on being soured on the game. Like I remember when you're like prompt to open the door, like a doorway or something like that, you have to like mash A, or you'd mash, I guess, the left, mouse button or something, but it still had like the Xbox button prompts on it. Like that's how lazy of a port it was, where they didn't even have like button things like transferred over, which is like the easiest thing to do, I would think. So I remember being like a very janky game and kind of like a so bad it's good. Like I played it with friends and we were just making fun of how silly and janky and stupid it was, and like having some fun with it that way. But I would not consider it a great game by any means. So I'm interested to see what seems like some hype for this sequel. And I think for me, it's kind of like last year had Back 4 Blood, which I had a ton of fun with that game. Like it didn't crack my top 10 in terms of my best games from last year, but I had a ton of fun playing through it from start to finish with some friends. And I would absolutely do that with this one. But also Back 4 Blood was on Game Pass day one. So I think that could be a big thing for me. Dead Island, those multiplayer co-op games, fantastic picks for Game Pass, and I really hope it goes there because that's where I would like to check it out. Because if it is a full-price game, I don't know if I'll be picking it up just because of its proximity to Hogwarts Legacy. I'm going to be busy. I think Dead Space comes out like
I forgot they dated that.
Yeah, and Dead Space Remake I think comes out a week, maybe 2 weeks before this as well. So
yeah, it's like said, that February March slot's really starting to fill up.
It's
and
heavy
stuff
now.
Like that. I feel like they just that's the people finished Christmas spending. January, February, they're back to work. They got time to buy some games and stuff like that.
Well, even the countless games have been delayed to like Q1, Q2 of next year as well. So I just don't know if there's going to be enough room for this one to swim. I think it might unfortunately sink, at least for me. We'll see, though. I mean, once again, if it does hit that Game Pass, I would gladly check it out and love to check it out with everyone on GeekVerse. That'd be a fun stream to play through that or just check it out for an afternoon. So we'll take a look at that. But I think that's pretty much it for the showcase. Any Any final thoughts from this here opening night live from you, Travis?
No, I will say it's just the funny thing where I'm very lucky, and maybe that's why I'm behind on some games. I'm very lucky to be a gamer because there's so much stuff that we wanted, like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 and Strikers, where now whenever Keely's like, oh, the thing people have been waiting for. I don't have that yet, and with KOTOR and that like Flux thing, it's like, oh, all the stuff that I've wanted, like the Mario Party, like I'm waiting for like, what is that next game? And Gotham Knights is just around the corner. It's like, I guess probably those next ones are probably, I guess, Wolverine for me. But even then, it's like I know it's coming. So I'm in a strange place where I'm always excited for these, but there's always like this one like mystical beast where it's like, oh, I hope this is gonna be there, but they probably won't. And I don't know what that game is yet. But I think again, overall good show. I hope Game Awards is more akin to Game Awards last year or Summer Games Fest last year, where just a more solid show. I think I'm more worried about that because I feel like, and I guess it doesn't even have to do this, but it's kind of a little bit. How do you feel about them adding that best adaptation category?
Ooh, yeah, I guess that's the thing, hey?
Yeah, and I thought, it's worth asking because, Keely, because like I feel like that's where we've talked about before, where the Game Awards, they start to be less about the game, like the games and the awards, and more about the announcements. And this to me also just feels like another excuse to try and get some celebrities on stage.
What would be the games from this year that would hit that category?
Well, I think it'd be like Uncharted. I think it'd be Sonic 2. And that's the thing.
Oh, wait, I thought it was. It's not video games that are made from other IP. It's specifically other things that came from games.
Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was the that way of adaptation. Let's see, video game adaptation.
It would just seem weird to me that like the video game awards would have an award that is not for a video game.
Okay, here we go. It adds a category. Let's see. Oh man, what is this? Venture Beat? You got? How many ads you got on here? People complain GeekVerse ads. My God. Let's see. They're set to award. This show has a new award to give out. Best Adaptation, as the name suggests, is for the best adaptation of gaming IP into a movie, show, podcast, novel, or comic book. So it is that
podcast. Yeah. So Kojima, he's gonna be there.
He's a shoo-in. He's
got to win a Game Award somehow.
Yeah. So
they even made a category just for him.
100%. Yeah. So that's where my worry is, that I think that as much as I love movies and movie and TV shows and that Oscars and stuff like that, I don't think this is needed because I don't know how many there needs to be yet. Because like I said, you got Sonic, you got Uncharted.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sonic wins that like by default. I'm trying to think what else would be.
I'm sure there's some other shows we're missing in there, like as
maybe
far
a Castlevania season. That's a thing.
Something like that. Witcher has like a
when's
season
Witcher coming out?
Well, there's a Witcher prequel coming out.
Resident Evil, that's a good one. Thanks.
Yeah, Resident Evil.
Oh, Halo, yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about Halo. That's gonna sweep.
So that's my worry of like, I said this before, where I do hope, as much as I, with many others, theorized that E3 was going to die, I do hope that if E3 does come back next year, it does kill it. It's hard because now all these other companies are doing their own showcase, so I don't think it's going to be the case. But because I think Keighley is getting a bit too comfortable now, and I feel like the Game Awards are going to get even more like celebrity focused, and I feel like this award is just to get another celebrity on stage to say thank you for this and everything like that. I get the idea, but yeah, they're literally giving out a movie TV show award at the Video Game Award, so
I'm sure they just want to find a way to give The Last of Us more awards when that show comes out.
100%.
They can do it there and get Pedro Pascal up on the stage, and he can say, "I love video games" and all this stuff.
I love video games, and the music plays and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Okay, this was a fun episode. This is a good breakdown here, almost as long as the showcase itself. So you can criticize us for our pacing too, if the fans want to do that.
No cars though. Though. We're not announcing a podcast, which you'd expect that here though, because that's what we do. That's not
we
what the
do
Game
that
Awards
often,
should be
don't
doing.
we?
Yeah.
Shows here and there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for this week. Make sure to come back next week for the Roller Drome review. I've been playing that. It's an interesting game, very cool. And me and you are going to be talking about more video games tomorrow with Out of Mana, which I'm very excited for that episode. It'll be a lot of fun. We're doing a PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale 2 Dream Roster, I guess we'll call it something like that. So that'll be a lot of fun. So join Patreon to get that episode in a couple days, or wait for it to hit the feeds in a couple weeks. But thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you guys again next time. See ya.